Now, what about Spurs against Chelsea? There always seems to be a theme when I ask you about Spurs, and you know your stuff, Janusz. You know a lot about football, but this seems to be the one topic that you cannot figure out. Tottenham Hotspur. Let's take a look at the recent form. Okay, now the one thing that sticks out is that win at Manchester City, but it's the only win in their last 6. They lost at Bournemouth. They dropped points against Fulham. They lost at Ipswich. So, Spurs-Chelsea. I mean, what? Why? How? What's going to happen with Spurs? What are we going to see from Postecoglou's men on Sunday? What do you reckon?
Well, again, we chatted about Wednesday. You asked me that question, right? Our friends at ESPN Australia put it out there because I had no answer for you. I said I don't know anything about Spurs. There's nothing to know. I didn't think that Ange knows anything about them, right? Because to a degree, it's true. You know, the lack of consistency. Starting 11 again. I mean, but this, missing players in the back were fair play. Now we don't even know about Ben Davies, right? I mean, he's come off game time decision, I suppose. The 2 center backs are out. Their goalkeeper is out. But I suppose everybody has to deal with these situations. And you'd like to think that if you Spurs with the new stadium, with money being spent, with the new manager, who I think everybody respects and likes for the most part, right? Who's getting benefit for the doubt, full season. You expect just that. I mean, more consistency. I think against Chelsea, you're going to see a pretty strong team. What's going to happen in the back, that's a big question mark. I think, in the midfield is going to be solid. Heung-min-Son was rested rested, didn't start right. So that front 3 is going to be formidable by their standards, and they are playing at home where they seem to be able to get big results. So they've got that going. So I don't think anybody would be shocked if they win it. But the form away from home, the form against perhaps smaller teams is questionable because right now, how do we say how good Spurs are?
They're consistently inconsistent.
One day the world beaters, Manchester City, they've beaten them twice. Although, look where the struggles Man City have done it. We kind of said the same thing. Wow, Aston Villa 4-1. Well, look at Villa. When was the last? They haven't been winning at all. So it's similar to Manchester City. So it's hard with Spurs. It's inconsistency. The true depth of the squad in terms of quality hasn't shown itself just yet. So it seems to me when you listen to Ange, don't you get a sense that he's dumbfounded? Like he doesn't have an answer either for that. And that's troublesome.
Just looking at the results and the way that they play and that win at Manchester City by 4-0, they seem to be at times a better team when they have less of the ball. Now, are they a better team against better teams? Because you look at some of those results. I mean, that was a great win against Villa. I mean, they've beaten City twice, as you mentioned. They don't have an issue playing against the better sides. I know they lost 1-0 at home to Arsenal earlier this season, but they know because a lot of the time these better sides or teams of a similar ability will play Spurs and maybe have more of the ball, but Spurs in transition have got pace and find a way and score. It's as if when Spurs are asked to create against teams with a low block or lots of players behind the ball that they struggle. That's not going to be the case on Sunday. So this sounds a weird question, but the Spurs have a better chance of beating Chelsea than they did against Bournemouth because the game probably suits them. The setup suits them a little bit better.
Sure. I mean, look, you got the pace, Heung-min-Son, Brennan Johnson, obviously. I mean, on the counter, Spurs have been good at that for a long period of time. This is not just Ange, right? I mean, if you look in the past, I mean, even when Pochettino was there, I mean, they were unbelievable on the break, weren't they? So that, I mean, just, thinking of Harry Kane and Heung-min-Son that one season where they were, both scoring, both assisting themselves, both pretty much doing it themselves. So this is not unusual. This is not just an Ange, but you have to find that balance. It may be the case, I think, when you have that, but I could also said that we've seen an uptick in form from the creative players, right? Because in the past you could have said, yeah, when teams play in the low block, that creativity wasn't there because James Maddison has had a bad start of the season. Well, lately, couple of goals. You can see him being more confident as well. He's certainly a player that can create. Kulusevski is a player that can score and create as well. So it's not because they don't have the players. So I think Ange just has to find that balance, has to find that understanding, that patience that so many good teams are known for, right? And Manchester City's at their best. Liverpool, right? I mean, Liverpool would probably say, yeah, I mean, we'd love to play on the break. I mean, they have everything to play on the counter, as you're suggesting as well. And they're much better at that than they are in possession. But, their key players deliver consistency. Mo Salah, if he's not scoring, he's creating goals. I mean, every time he touches the ball, something good happens. And so I hear you. I think you're up to something, but that's what good teams do. And that's why they're not a good team right now. They're not a team that can compete for anything significant in the Premier League because of the lack of balance.
I'll tell you what they're up against on Sunday. They are up against a decent side. And I was looking back to the start of the season when Chelsea lost at home to Man City. Right? Man City were flying, defending champions, and it wasn't a surprise that they won. What's been a surprise is that Chelsea have only lost once in the Premier League in the 13 games since, and that was at Anfield. How have they done it?
Well, they've done it first and foremost because Enzo Maresca. I mean, look how many changes they've had. I mean, historically they've always had managerial changes, but recently they found a man who promised and he delivers on that, right? Attacking football, all these young players are performing. The message it really is, Enzo's being kind of, well, we're not in a race. Well, Mark, let's tell him here, right? I mean, you are in the race, if you like it or not. You are in the race for the Premier League title. And by the way, they should embrace it. What do you think, right? I mean, they got the players and better and better every game. How they've done
I understand why he says that, though, Janusz. I mean, you're not going to say, because that. Why would you just say, oh yeah, we're aiming for the title and everything?
Why not?
Why not? Not yet. This is December.
Right? No, I actually think the opposite. Because nobody's going to hold it against them. Everybody understands that they're ahead of schedule.
If you're him, is that what you're doing? Are you going out and proclaiming from the rooftops?
Not from the rooftops, but I'm talking about message to the players, which may or may not be.
That's different. Oh, of course, that's different. I'm talking what he says to the media.
But the message, even in the media, if it was me, I wouldn't be saying, I would be doing it humbly, but I'd say, you know what? We're way ahead of schedule, but here we are. Second in the table, right? Nobody's going to hold it against them, by the way, if they don't deliver on it. But I think the message for the players would be, maybe we can do this. I mean, this is a 23-year-old team, right? I mean, average 23-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Say we're going for it. We're going for it. And if we fail, who's going to say anything about that, right? Nobody's going to say it. My point is, instead of constantly saying, "Oh, we're not ready, we're not ready, we're not ready, we're not ready." Okay, I get that, because in the dressing room, by the way, the message may be different. I would bet quite a bit of money that what I'm saying right now is quietly being said in the dressing room. Mm-hmm. If it's not, it should be. Hey, look at this: Manchester City, a big hole. Arsenal, up and down where they're supposed to be. Aston Villa, Spurs, a big hole, and here we are in the second place. Why not give it a go and not be afraid of that? Just to say, what if this is the year? Sometimes you don't count on that, right? Because you know why I would say that? Because if this year is not the year, next year is going to be tougher. Because as we always say, there's Manchester United, cities, a lot of the teams are going to get better. And oh, by the way, Enzo Maresca is not going to get to say what he's saying now next year, because we're all going to say, well, hey, so when are you going to be ready? What is this, 5-7 year project? So my point is, they're here, embrace it, and go for it.
I get that. My point is, you say that to the players. That doesn't change. Hey, why can't we go for the title in the inner sanctum of the changing room, whether it's at home or away? But what you say to the media, I don't think he's done anything wrong as far as what he said. Just try and minimize expectations among supporters or anything like that.
We're smarter than that. We're not buying that. We're smarter than that. You can say it once or twice or three times. If you come out with this every week and second place and say, that difference in points is smaller and smaller. Well,
there's no hiding place if they win on Sunday at Spurs.
Well, I mean, at some point, if you Enzo, my only point is that there is a fine line and margins when you do what Enzo does. And by the way, I get it. I understand it. I'm not fine with that. But, if you say it often enough and we can all see what's happening here, that there may be a window of opportunity, an unbelievable opportunity that you didn't count on. Nobody did. Nobody's going to hold it against you. Go for it, and kind of says, you know what? We're here now. We're going to give this a go and see where it gets us. That's what I would like to hear humbly from him.
You've been in enough changing rooms and locker rooms in your career. Alex Ferguson was the king of it. He'd say one thing to the players and then say something pretty much the opposite to the media. That's for them to work out. Ultimately, results do the talking. And I just can't believe it's a year since one of the craziest Premier League games of last season, when Spurs had 2 players sent off, played that high line that was practically on the halfway line, and Nico Jackson got a late hat-trick, didn't he? As Chelsea won by 4-1. So I'd take the drama again on Sunday. As far as the game is concerned, knowing that we've got no chance of being able to predict if Spurs are Pelly or Smelly, what are we going to go for here?
I like Chelsea here. I mean, part of it, as you know, I mean, Spurs kind of. I think they can and know how to bounce, right? We give them credit; they're playing at home and all that. But I think it's almost a perfect game because I don't know if Spurs give the ball to Chelsea, right? If I'm Chelsea, I'm going to sit and look what you have in terms of pace as well. We just spoke about Spurs on the counter, right? If you look at Pedro Neto, look at Madueke, Nico Jackson. I mean, I just think that. Why are they here? You've asked me, Chelsea, and I see how much he's getting out of the players, so much, right? I mean, I think you and I both know in Nico Jackson, what I'm seeing right now. I mean, I've seen it in him, but I was doubting him. I have to say, Madueke, look at what Enzo's doing with him. He wants more and more and more. I'm not surprised because he's got all the tools. I agree with Enzo that he's a bit lazy and he wants this consistency, this 95-minute commitment every game, not just in the game, but in training as well, because he probably sees it, right? We don't see what's happening in training, but you can only imagine if he's capable of doing that. Imagine if he was doing that in training day in and day out as well. So Pedro Neto, I've loved him. If it wasn't for injuries, remember, I mean, I remember getting, not slag, but saying, he'd be perfect for Liverpool, wouldn't he, right? With Salah not knowing he can play on the left side, as I told you before, watch him at Portugal, plays on the right side, which lately, in some cup competitions, I've seen him on the right-hand side. I like him there even more. Coming on that left foot, sort of what Saka does, and we saw Madueke, by the way, doing it as well. So he's capable of playing anywhere there. You can play him behind the striker as well because he's so creative. Could be a playmaker as well. So I think Enzo's just getting absolutely everything. Some issues still in the back, isn't it? So that would be a question mark because Spurs have a lot to offer there. So it looks, Fofana's been excellent after all these seasons with these injuries, right? Even the right side seemed to kind of fix itself a little bit, although Fofana was playing on the right side. Reece James, we know he's out. Gusto up and down a little bit with that as well. So that to me is somewhat questionable because, again, Cucurella to me is one of those players, don't you think? Just really ups and downs under Pochettino and here, and the only place where I see him consistent seems to be Spain. But so he makes me nervous a little bit. So that back four, still some work to do, I think, for Enzo Maresca.
Which hopefully means goals on Sunday. Janusz will be back straight after the game alongside myself on ESPN FC Live to look back on events between Spurs and Chelsea. And Janusz will be here with LME in the morning for Everton against Liverpool. Full reaction. And just one thing finally, if you do play Fantasy Premier League, Maresca said today that Robert Sanchez is his #1 goalkeeper and he will be back between the sticks to replace Jurgensen against Spurs on Sunday. My thanks to Janusz. We will do it all again this weekend. Some good games to look forward to all across Europe. ESPN FC every single night on ESPN+. Bye for now.